Alfred Wainwright, yes, that Wainwright, said, "There's no such thing as bad weather, only unsuitable clothing." As a fellow British person, I love this quote because if I put off my favourite outdoorsy hobbies until the weather was nice, I'd never get round to doing anything. Here in the UK, it feels like rain is the default, so as summer comes to an end, I thought I would make a video all about what to wear hiking in the rain, from base layers to waterproofs, so that you feel like you can get out and explore whatever the weather without feeling like you're risking trench foot or something. Which leads me right on to our base layers, starting with our socks. Now, this might sound a bit counterintuitive, but I'm actually going to start by telling you not to buy something, and that is waterproof socks. You might think, surely the best way to keep my feet dry is by using socks like these, but I actually don't think they're worth it at all. Full disclosure, I've never actually used them out and about myself. These are my partner's, but from what I've heard from him, other people, and by trying them on myself briefly, I think they're just a bit too uncomfortable, bulky, and also overkill. I've also heard that they wear down pretty easily too. Basically, how most of them work is that they have 2 layers of sock fabric that hold a kind of rubbery waterproof membrane inside that acts as a barrier. I don't know if you can hear this, but it sounds like crunchy. If that membrane gets punctured or just wears away due to the constant rubbing and friction your socks go through, it makes the whole sock kind of pointless. So while I'm sure they have their uses, I've never felt like I've needed them when hiking. So what socks should you use when hiking in the rain? Well, I've always just gone for a standard hiking or walking sock. Maybe throw on a liner sock underneath if it's particularly cold or soggy. I've also found that merino wool socks are great for me because they keep you warm even when they're wet. And actually, according to Darn Tough, merino can hold over 30% of its own weight in water before beginning to feel wet, which is great for comfort and avoiding blisters. Merino wool also has antimicrobial properties that help resist odours and bacteria buildup, keeping your feet feeling a bit fresher. I will say though that I do also love my synthetic walking socks too, and I have found that they're slightly less irritating to my skin. That might just be a me problem though, because I have eczema, I have sensitive skin, so that might not be a problem for you, but pros and cons with synthetic and merino. Next up, I'd say go for a long sleeve top. Now, if it's not particularly cold outside, you might feel like long sleeves are a bit too much, but I personally like using them when it's raining because it gives you a more nice and soft feeling barrier against your waterproof, which usually feels a bit sticky and uncomfortable against your bare skin. It also gives you a layer of moisture wicking that will help pull sweat from your body and keep you feeling dry. I've used both synthetic and merino wool base layers, and I do like using both. I've had some comments from people saying they find synthetic base layers to have a kind of plasticky smell or just don't do well to resist odours, so keep that in mind if that's something you're worried about, but honestly, I haven't experienced that at all. And if you're on a budget too, synthetic base layers are usually significantly more affordable than merino wool base layers. In the cold though, these probably will keep you warmer. Now, as for a base layer on the bottom half, I do sometimes wear these thin leggings that are the same synthetic fabric as the base layer top I showed, but that's usually only if it's really cold, but they do help with moisture wicking though. I often don't bother with full-on waterproof over trousers. These are some lovely ones. Because most of my trousers are pretty water resistant anyway, but I will chuck these little packaway ones in my bag if I know that there's going to be a risk of heavy rainfall. Things to look out with over trousers are whether there are pocket holes, actual pockets, or none at all. Some over trousers do have pockets themselves, but I think it's more common for them to just have pocket holes so that you can still access your normal trouser pockets. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. If anything, it makes it easier so you don't have to transfer your stuff over between trousers, but it's just something to make a note of, as depending on the position of them, it might be difficult to reach your actual pockets. Another thing is whether they have a bag to pack them away in, like this one. This just makes it so that if the rain clears up and you want to take them off and pack them away, you can stick them in this bag so that they don't make the rest of your stuff in your bag soaking wet. You also need to check to see if they have a wide enough opening at the ankle to allow you to get them on while you're wearing your boots. Some might have poppers that you can close, others might be adjustable elastic. If you can, just give them a go in a shop to see what you find the easiest to use. There's nothing worse than having to wrestle with a pair of waterproof trousers around your ankles. It's a very humbling experience, to say the least. Like I said though, a lot of the time I avoid putting on over trousers because it's just kind of annoying, so I like to wear trousers that have some water repellency to them. You can get some really good fully water repellent trousers, but I find that ones like these Decathlon trekking trousers kind of have a hybrid fabric system are the most comfortable. As you can see, areas like the bum or the seat, I guess is the proper name, the ankle and the knees that are more likely to get wet when you sit down or kneel are stretchier, thicker and water repellent, and the rest of the trousers are lighter and more breathable. Highly recommend, and it means you can stay more comfy and only chuck on the waterproofs if you really need them. Now, because this is a guide for rainy weather, not cold weather, I wasn't sure whether to include a mid-layers section to this video, but I ultimately decided that I should because there are a few extra things to think about when it comes to wet weather. On top of the fact that moisture pulls away heat from the body, making you feel colder, it can also just feel quite uncomfortable and sticky. And one of the things that I struggle with the most in wet weather is the humidity. And I hate feeling like my skin can't breathe. So hopefully these things help alleviate that for you as well. If it's not too cold, I tend to go with something like a fleece. When it's raining, I find it helpful to go with one that fully unzips so that if I need to vent some heat quickly and gain a bit of breathability back, I can without having to fully take off the waterproof on top. If it's colder or you just like to be prepared, you can go with an insulated jacket instead. But here you need to have a little bit of a think about the materials you choose. Downfill jackets like this one are really good at keeping you warm, but only if the jacket itself is dry. This is because when down is working as it should be, there are lots of little pockets of air that trap the heat next to your body. It's highly compressible, which is why it'll pack down a lot smaller than a synthetic jacket. But when the down gets wet, all of those little feathers clump together and the insulating power is lost. Synthetic insulation, on the other hand, will keep you warm when it's wet because its fibres are hydrophobic. They tend to be a bit bulkier though. This is so much heavier than this one, but I think they are improving over time. Plus, they're often much cheaper than down jackets too, and they haven't used an animal product. Either way, you're most likely going to be wearing this insulated layer underneath your waterproof anyway, so it's not the end of the world if you take out a down jacket on a rainy day. Just make sure you keep it as dry as possible. It's worth mentioning too that if you've already got a waterproof jacket, you need to make sure that your mid layers or insulated layer or both ideally fit underneath it. You need to be able to close that waterproof fully to get the full benefit. Which brings us to probably the most important part, your waterproof jacket, sometimes known as a shell, but please note that a shell might not always be waterproof. I could make a full video about choosing a waterproof jacket, but I'm going to try and condense it into the main things I think you should look out for when shopping for one here. Just as a disclaimer though, you should know that there is no single universal way to measure things like how waterproof or breathable something is. Different brands have different ways to test these things, and while some are more common than others, like a hydrostatic head rating for example, the lack of a rating like this isn't necessarily something to worry about. That brand might just measure it in a different way. It's confusing and annoying, I know, but unfortunately you just have to take all of these different ratings with a pinch of salt and try your best to compare the different figures. I think the most common rating you see for waterproofs is a hydrostatic head rating, which basically measures how much water fabric can withstand before it starts to leak or soak through. This is measured in millimeters because essentially a piece of the fabric will be placed under a big tube of water, and the rating is the height or amount of water the fabric can withstand. Hopefully I haven't lost you there. It does feel like a bit of a random test because unless you're standing under a waterfall, I guess, I'm not sure you're finding a column of water in the wild, but at least it gives us some numbers to look out for and compare with. So anything less than 2000 millimeters is more water resistant than waterproof in my opinion, so probably okay for light showers, but I wouldn't want to rely on it for too long. 5000 is starting to get there. It's good for everyday use with small amounts of time in heavier rain, but for hiking and other outdoor activities where you could be out in heavier rain for longer, I'd personally go with something around 20,000 millimeters and above. My go-to waterproof is the Rab Namchi Gore-Tex jacket, which has a hydrostatic head rating of 28,000 millimeters. I always feel like I'm totally rainproof in this, but just so you know, the breathability is getting slightly more limited at this level of waterproofing. If you do want to get to that 20,000 mark, it's good to start making sure that the jacket has extra features to make it more breathable, like pit zips and mesh pockets, which allow a bit more airflow while limiting where the water can creep in. It's also a good idea to have a look at the hood and how adjustable it is. I think I have a small head, so it's always helpful for me when a hood has these kind of like adjustable pulleys at the back and at the bottom, especially if they're the kind that you can just adjust one-handed. I also love that my waterproof jacket has a stiff peak hood, which means that it's got like a metal wire or something similar that you can kind of bend into whatever position you like. Which basically just helps to have like a bit more face coverage. Like I said earlier also, your waterproof jacket needs to be big enough to fit over your insulating layers and base layers. I went with one that was a couple of sizes bigger than what I usually wear so that I'd feel comfy and roomy enough with all of my other clothes on. Plus I just like things that are slightly oversized, so that's why I did that. If you're choosing a jacket in person, it's a good idea to try it on with everything that you plan to wear underneath too. A bit like how it's good to test a backpack by bringing your gear with you. Also, if you found a jacket that you'd like, I'd recommend looking for it secondhand too. A lot of the time, the waterproofs I see in charity shops or secondhand apps like Vinted just need a little bit of TLC and re-waterproofing, which can easily be done by reapplying a DWR treatment like Nikwax or Granger's. You can save a lot of money this way and save a waterproof from going into landfill. Similarly, you might want to look into, in fact, I'd highly recommend that you look into jackets that are PFAS free like this one. I talk about this a little bit in my video about the problems with hiking fashion, but basically these are known as forever chemicals that are very damaging to the environment and have been shown to lead to health problems too. The technology is out there and has been for years, so I really think we should be putting on the pressure for these companies to use these products and support the companies that already do. Okay, next, what are shoes if not jackets for the feet? I'm sorry. So for shoes, I like to go with waterproof hiking boots. I love a trail runner, and these ones are actually waterproof for lighter showers, but they don't give you that ankle protection, and unless you're wearing gaiters, your socks are going to get soaked. Gaiters, by the way, are these kind of leg warmer looking things that you put on that act as a continuation of your trousers, so that any water running down them or your legs will run over the gaiters and past the opening of your shoe, keeping your feet dry. I've actually seen some people wear them with shorts, and I think it actually looks really cool, but I'm not sure if I can pull that off. Anyway, back to the shoes. Lots of boots will say that they're waterproof, but not really feel like it. And I feel like the biggest culprit of those are the ones that have a kind of soft, flexible fabric. While these do tend to be more breathable, I found that the waterproof treatments on them just don't last very long. These boots are fabric too, but they feel pretty solid, and they're probably the most waterproof boots I own. These are the Northwest Territory Camo Men's Waterproof walking boots. They are pretty heavy, but like I said, I've literally never felt a drop of water when wearing these. I also like these boots from Salomon. They're the X Ultra 360 Gore-Tex walking boots. These are kind of my go-to standard shoe that I just wear rain or shine. But I do love these in wet weather because they feel very sturdy on slippery wet ground, and they feel really comfy, and they don't make my feet feel like they're being boiled alive, which I hear can be a common complaint when it comes to waterproof shoes. Okay, on to accessories. Hat-wise, I'm probably sounding like a broken record here, but merino wool is great for water repellency and warmth. If it's not that cold but it is rainy, I'd recommend a cap like this one because it gives your face a little bit more rain protection and doesn't make you too hot. I also feel like a lot of these are made out of nylon or other water repellent materials and feel more waterproof than beanies, although some beanies like this one do have waterproof treatments. As for gloves, I think the idea of waterproof gloves is a bit of a joke, but there are some out there that do give you a lot of protection from the elements. The ones that tend to be a bit more robust against rain look more like the kind of gloves you'd see in the snow sports section, and I think unless it is really cold outside, you'll be absolutely sweltering in them and probably make them wet from the inside out. Now, your skin is waterproof, so you might not even feel the need to wear gloves. I personally get worse skin when it becomes wet from the rain over a long period of time, so I like to wear like a thinner glove or even a convertible fingerless glove to mitten combo like this one. Absolutely love these because if you need the warmth you can whack it on, but you can keep using your phone or your watch, that kind of thing. Really like these. You can probably find similar ones in the fishing section if you have a decathlon. That's where I found them. Thinner gloves tend to be good in lighter rain, but they are likely to get a bit soggy if you're out for a long time. I would say a glove like this is a kind of mid-weight glove that I would recommend. One tip is to use a thin liner glove inside of a pair of water repellent gloves, as it'll help with wicking away any moisture and stopping your hands from feeling sweaty. If you're doing things like scrambling as well, it's important to remember that when you're grabbing and holding on to wet rocks, you're putting pressure on the moisture on the glove and kind of forcing it through the material, making them even less water repellent. In cases like these, it's always a good shout to have a spare pair or two on you so that you can swap them over when they get too wet. Also, as a bonus, if you're a glasses wearer, you should keep an eye out for gloves like these, which have a soft patch of fabric that you can use to wipe the rain from your glasses. Very handy for photographers too. Now, I'm not sure if this counts as something that you'll wear. I suppose it also counts as an accessory, but I think you should bring a rain cover for your backpack. Some people say that you should just use some dry bags. Some would say just the cover. I would say both. I very rarely use my rain cover because my bags are all lightly water resistant anyway, but in heavy rain I would recommend using one and putting your valuables, electrics and insulated layers into dry bags or at least a liner bag. If you're backpacking or camping as well, this would include your sleeping bag and extra clothes too. There are pros and cons to all of them, which I'll try and speed through. With rain covers, the pros are that things in your outer pockets are also protected and your bag itself is protected, so it won't soak up a load of extra water weight. Also, rain covers are often really brightly coloured. This one, not so much, but I also have like a neon yellow one too, which can be life-saving if you needed to attract emergency support in low visibility conditions like rain or fog. The cons though is that they're kind of annoying to use. You have to take them off whenever you want to get in your bag, and while you're rummaging around in it, your gear isn't protected. Also, they're often just held on with elastic, so they might not always have a tight seal and they can be really annoying flapping around in the wind. The pros of dry bags, however, are that everything is very protected. When you're looking in your bag for your lunch, you aren't exposing your electrics or your down jacket. They can also make finding things much easier if you've separated things into categories, and like a pack liner, it protects your stuff from water bladder leakages too. On the other hand, lots of little dry bags quickly add up in weight, and things can take up more space when they're bagged up than when they're loose because they can't fit in those smaller gaps anymore. Pack liners, on the other hand, are kind of like having a waterproof liner in your bag. Well, they're exactly like that. They don't weigh much and are usually pretty cheap, but they can make it more difficult to find things quickly. And if you have a bag like mine that can be opened in multiple ways, you're losing that ability unless you cut more holes into the pack liner. Plus, you have the same problem as the rain cover, where you will be letting in rain while you're rummaging through it. So lots of things to think about there, and I really think you should just go with what you prefer and what works for you and your gear. I personally go with a mix of all three, bringing a rain cover, sticking my valuables and electrics into dry bags, and using a pack liner to put it all in. Lots of bags actually come with a rain cover too, and if you're on a budget, you can use a bin bag or a trash bag to act as a pack liner. They're lightweight, cheap and waterproof, and if you really want to splash out, you can upgrade to a garden refuse sack, which will be more durable and tear resistant. Finally, nearly done I swear, I have some bonus tips that aren't really things that you wear, but things that I think are helpful for hiking in the rain. Number one, if you have long hair, I recommend plaiting/braiding it or pulling it back into a bun, because I find that there's nothing more annoying than pulling your hood up and having to maneuver your wet hair all over the place to fit it inside the hood. Just get it all together so it can be easily pushed out of the way. Number two is pack a microfiber flannel or small towel. Great for wiping off your face or your glasses or your hands after falling into a bog. Speaking from experience. Number three, bring a trekking pole for extra stability on slippery surfaces. Number four, pack an extra pair of socks. I do this all year round because I think putting on a fresh pair of socks after a hike is one of the most satisfying things you can do. But it's extra important when it's wet outside. Wet feet really quickly leads to things like hypothermia. Get that sorted as soon as possible. And number five, this is something that I've not tried yet, but I've heard people recommend it and I wanted to pass it on to you guys in case you found it useful. Bring a compact umbrella. I know it sounds a bit silly and I feel like I'd probably find it too annoying to get out, just like the over trousers, but apparently they are one of the best ways to keep you and your backpack dry, as long as it's not like a super windy sideways rain situation. I'm mainly just telling you because I want you to go out and try it and tell me if it's good, because then I might give it a go. By now, you should be fully dressed and ready to go on an adventure in the rain. I hope this video helped, even just as a bit of encouragement to get out when the weather is bad. Check out the playlist I've linked in the description down below if you want more hiking advice, and thank you very much to my patrons and members for supporting this channel. Thank you for watching.